There you go. You like that song? Of course you like that song. Great genius. Nice man, too. Burt Bacharach died. But he was going to live on with some of the most famous songs of the 20th and into the 21st century, like this one. I mean, I just picked one, This Guy's in Love with You. And one of the comments is, my dad used to sing this song to my mom while dancing her around the lounge. I mean, come on, what are you going to do? You miss geniuses like this. What do we have here? This is different now. We got somebody different, but our prayers to the Baccarat family and our thanks to God for giving us this great talent. So many great songs. We'll pick a few more out while we're telling you the information they're hiding from you. Two big ones today. Two big lies. Two big lies from the lying administration. I don't know which one is bigger. I think I'm going to tell you the smaller one first and the bigger one second. The smaller one was outlined quite brilliantly by Miranda Devine in the New York Post today. I don't have to spend a lot of time on it because if you read it, you're going to get it. And it involves a guy who I think is role model. Can you imagine that anybody would have as a role model Shifty Schiff, Pencil Neck? Would you imagine that? But there are people who did. John Gotti, role model, was Al Anastasia, who was the biggest hitman in the history of the mafia. Kid Blast. He liked the way that Anastasia organized hits and studied it. See, you got a lot of sick people in the world. So this guy's role model, Dan Goleman, who's a rookie, he's only been there like a month or two. He probably doesn't even know where the capital really is and gets lost on the way there. Who knows where he goes? Better not hang around with Swalwell. He'll be with a lot of, Chinese spies. So he did a big one yesterday, and Miranda Devine, who's got to be, I don't know, it's between her and Solomon, the two best investigative reporters in Washington. They may be the only investigative reporters in Washington.
Well, they all kind of came out in 2016, Mayor.
Man, she got him right. And the solar plexus. Dan Goleman, I knew you were not worthy of any of the jobs that you took. He became the chief counsel of the, second impeachment. Of course, he lost. So in the middle of the hearing yesterday, the guy, I know these guys. I went to law school with guys like this. And Goldman was in the office I ran for 5 years, 5.5, the office in which I was the assistant U.S. attorney. And in my first 5.5 years in the office of the United States Attorney for the Southern District in New York, I won every one of my cases. I tried Vito Genovese's brother-in-law when I was 26 years old. I convicted major white-collar criminals, participated in an investigation that put 70 police officers in jail. And some of my exploits during that period of time were on the front page of the Times and getting Congressman Podell to plead guilty on the witness stand and also in the movie Prince of the City. So that's my record. Here's his record. 9 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office, never promoted him to a damn thing. Now, that's almost impossible. You've got to be inadequate and they don't like you if you don't get promoted after 9 years. Well, he left after 9 years and he joined the organized coup to remove a lawfully elected president based upon fraudulent, paid for false information, which was the second or the first impeachment. Both of them were. And he's very proud of that, except they lost both of them. Yeah. When it went to a trial, they were thrown out of the Senate. Great case, Dan. And now you are showing your talent to the entire country because you decided to interrupt. You're like the guy in a law school class, and anybody who went to law school will relate to this, who puts his hand up all the time. Professor, I got the answer. I got the answer. He's usually the biggest jackass in the class. So he's got the answer. So in the middle of this hearing being held by serious members of Congress, even the Democrats here are some pretty high level. I mean, I don't care much for Raskin, but I respect his intellect and have had battles with him. One of these days, you'll see testimony they're hiding where I ripped him apart. And it's not even secret. I may even tell you.
Why can't we see that? Why is that being hidden, Mayor?
Because they hide everything that is unfavorable to them, like Raskin being made a fool out of. Or, I mean, if they could hide this, they would have hid this. So Daniel Goldman decides to interrupt about the testimony that's being offered by the Republicans concerning the New York Post being censored. And Daniel, like the idiot in law school class, puts up his hands and says, right off the top, the very first paragraph of this so-called bombshell story is completely false, gesturing grandly. The very first paragraph says Hunter Biden introduced his father to a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the company. That is false, 100% false, not even 90% false. It was 100% false. Mr. Comer, who obviously is working on large increments of IQ points higher than Goldman and a sophistication that Goldman lacks, very, very shrewdly, like the country lawyer that he is, says, is the gentleman sure about that? Now, when a cross-examiner asks you to repeat, you don't, because you get the signal right away. He picked up something in your answer where he is going to nail you to the cross. Unless he's a dope, and Comer's not a dope. So not taking the signal because Goldman thinks he's smarter than anyone, even though 9 years and no promotions in the U.S. Attorney's Office tells me all I need to know about him. Goldman says, yes, in fact, I'm sure, as the lead counsel in the first impeachment investigation that was thrown out by the Senate. That's the one you led, the one thrown out by the Senate, Dan. Like, you lost? Don't think I brag about it? It's the one that now has been proven to be a paid fraud. Don't think I brag about that either, jerk. We proved that he was actually fired because he was not prosecuting corruption. Not that he was fired because he was prosecuting corruption. Comer says, very shrewdly, corruption of the president's son's company. Goldman, flustered, says, the fact that Joe Biden had fired the prosecutor general in Ukraine because he did not prosecute corruption has been proven over and over. Now, here's where, shut up, dummy. This could be used in, I used to teach cross-examination. This could be used in my cross-examination class for talking too much. Here's the killer. You should talk to the British authorities because they were the ones who were prosecuting Burisma, and they could not get any cooperation from the Ukrainian prosecutor general, so that's why he was fired. That prosecutor general he is talking about, Prosecutor General Urema, who preceded Prosecutor General Shokin, who was the one prosecuting the Biden kid 2 years later. He never bothered to check. He's talking about the wrong prosecutor general. Oh, yes, he was fired because he took a $7,000 bribe. And so did Biden's friend, the president of Ukraine, who took a $5,000 bribe. Shokin didn't get appointed until 2 years later. He's got the wrong prosecutor general. Doesn't matter who he defames. Doesn't matter who he lies about. He's following in the footsteps of Shifty Schiff. I have 2 witnesses that can show that Trump directly colluded with the Russians. What happened to them? How come you never produced them? You got any names? Or are you just a sniveling piece of crap congressman who just wants power and money? And you just lie no matter what? Sounds like the right description. Shokin, at the time, was retired. He was living at his home 120 miles away. He didn't come back into government until months later. So there we go. We got a new, young, developing Shifty Schiff, another Democrat liar who wants to create false charges against people, which is despicable. Worst thing in the world, if you've been a prosecutor, is the instinct to create false charges. I'd like to go back and look at his cases and see how many innocent people he prosecuted. A prosecutor should not have that instinct. They should have just the opposite instinct. You don't accuse somebody unless, oh my God, you got it, you know? I have it on the Bidens. I've got it left, I've got it right, I've got it in the middle. I have tapes, I have pictures, I have contracts, I have witnesses. I got a case that I never had before. I never had a RICO case like this. I never had a case in which the main guy describes the contract of the RICO enterprise, right down to the nice and tight. December 25th, 2018, Hunter Biden to his daughter. I hope they treat you better than they treated me, because the family never had any respect for me, even though for 30 years I paid all the expenses of the Biden family. And still, Pop required me to give him, for 30 years, half my income. Do I have to spell that out for you, or are you sufficiently quick? You can figure that out in 2 seconds. That's the whole bribery scheme, isn't it? 30 years. Goes back to his sniveling, crooked brothers who were doing it for pennies because they were, going around to the trailer parks and picking up money. Then from the bank, MSNBA Bank, that picked up a little more money when Hunter came in, $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year. Then he became vice president, and they decided, man, that's a big office to sell. Senator, you can get some money, but we can sell out the presidency. We'll sell it out in Iraq. We'll sell it out in Ukraine. We'll sell it out in Russia. And boy, will we make a score in China. And they did. They made millions. Very successful business. Main product, Joe's public office. No other product. None of them have brains. Joe was left back in the 3rd grade. Cheated his way through law school. Had to drop out of the 1988, 87 presidential race because he lied so blatantly, it was pronounced that he could never run for president again. But then the media forgot all that. And now we have probably the biggest provable criminal in the history of the presidency sitting in the White House with a family of crooks around him, spelled out in great detail in a hard drive that was suppressed by the FBI, by the Justice Department, and by the major media and social apps and whatever for years in order to get him elected president, because they were so afraid of Donald Trump, they would rather have a demented crook as president of the United States. And you see the condition we're in now, right? So that's line number one. Now we go to the balloon. The big balloon. So when I was watching the State of the Union speech, which according to the left-wing media was brilliant. Oh my goodness. They were, lucky Matthews is not around. He might have gotten tingles up his leg again. That was very embarrassing when Obama got elected and Matthews got tingles up his legs. And who knows what Andrew Cuomo or Chris Cuomo, what did Chris Cuomo do? Did he have tingles this time? When that brilliant speech that Biden began by by announcing that Schumer was the minority leader.
Oh my goodness!
Nobody told him that Schumer became majority. How do you expect him to know that Schumer became the majority leader if nobody? You think he doesn't read anymore?
There's no way.
With his level of dementia, you think he reads? He reads the
teleprompter. Very poorly.
Did you ever see the words? How big they are? They're like this.
God, how big are those screens?
That's why he goes slow.
Because they have like one word at a time. Yeah. One word at a time.
Man, he pushed it, babes. That last 15 minutes, that was a.
His people were just, they were back there just sweating. They were sweating, Mayor.
Stuff was starting to wear off. It was starting to wear off. We were beginning to get the usual
slurs.
Biden.
I want to laugh, but it's almost elder abuse. It almost is elder abuse.
You think Jill abuses him? Think she slaps him around and feeds him or doesn't feed him? You think he feeds himself?
It is.
Have you been in a nursing home?
It is unconscionable. However, they wanted to keep him up there as long as they could, because what did they want their talking point to be?
He was able to stand up there for 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Never mind the substance or the contents of what he was saying.
Oh, hundreds of lies. Things that are going to.
We crunched the numbers. This was the single most dishonest State of the Union speech in the history of America.
It has to be. I mean, you can't even. I mean, it's almost useless to parse it and try to figure out what he lied about. But let's get to a national security lie, because the Goldman lie is one in a whole sequence of lies going back to Hillary and the fixing of her case, which Senator Johnson did a great job of analyzing today in front of Jordan's committee. Gee, Raskin looked like, what did jackass Raskin look like today? I'm going to show you what he looked like. Why did Democrats want to look like jackasses? I know the party is symbolized by a jackass. And of course, it's the party that gave us slavery and defended it and got a lot of Americans killed defending slavery. Why they can continue to use that name and change every other name in America because it had something to do with slavery. There's not an institution that had more to do with slavery than the Democrat Party. Change the name if that's the game you want to play. Well, in any event, remember when the balloon came over, the administration did not tell us about this balloon. They want us to think they did. The balloon was first spotted on January 28th. It wasn't made public until, I can't remember if it was the 1st or the 3rd, but it wasn't made public until it got over around Montana, because it was very close to air bases. And a civilian leaked it to the press. Question: would the Biden administration have ever told us about it if they had gone, taken all their pictures, left with all that they needed to compromise us? And we would be no wiser than we were about the other 4 that they now say took place. They never told us about. There's no indication they had any plan to tell us until it was leaked. This is the same thing that happened with his stealing top secret information. They did not tell us that top secret information was found in his house, in the office provided by the Chinese Communist Party. That's what the University of Pennsylvania office is. As far as we can tell, all the money supporting it is Chinese communist money. You put top secret documents in an office supported by the Chinese communists? Yeah, if you're Joe Biden and they own you. And finally, he had him in his garage out in the open like this. And a guy making millions from the Chinese communists passed it every day for a year or two. And then wrote things that seemed terribly similar to what you would read in there. God, us think we're stupid. You can figure that out. Right? I don't even think I'll make that point. The point that I'm going to make is when they got caught with their pants down and the balloon was over an air base of the United States of America intended to defend us with nuclear weapons, they said, oh, nothing to worry about. That balloon can't get any more information than the satellite can get way above it. We get that every day. And we can't take the balloon down because it'd be too dangerous. Well, two things happened to me at that time. Something kicked in that comes from my podcast. CS. What does CS stand for, Ted?
Common sense.
Okay, let's use common sense. Let's use Greek logic. Let's use a modicum of intelligence. Okay, let's see if we can analyze this and think for ourselves. Because if we're going to save this country, we got to think for ourselves, don't we? How is it possible we couldn't take that down? First of all, we knew about it for 4 or 5 days. When we first found out about it, it was out over a big ocean. Now it turns out they had done it 4 or 5 times before, and we knew they were doing it in other countries, and we knew the purpose of it to spy, even though they never told us that originally. So they knew all of that when they first found out about it. Question, when did they tell Sleepy Biden about it? Did they tell him on the 28th, or did they wait until it was leaked? They hid it from Trump and from Trump's advisors, every single one of them. That's a very dangerous military that does that. But it's been a dangerous military for some time, since General, what's the guy's name with all the ribbons on? Miley Ribbons. What is he? He's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? He's like our top military officer. I must be more respectful. But that kind of ended when he said that if he had to, he would alert the Chinese if Trump were going to attack them. That's the time in which he should have been removed and prosecuted. Or maybe when he gave away Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China. Like him to explain that one to me in a cross-examination, in a trial for espionage, sedition. Give away an air base 400 miles from China. Do you know we're begging for air bases now 1,000 miles from China? And the Biden administration gave one away 400 miles from China. Do you think it is fair to raise the question that they were compromised and influenced by the $31 million that the Biden family got in the 4 years leading up to that decision? Is that a fair question for me to ask? Or am I being mean? Or am I being a patriot in asking that question because I got the guts to ask it? We damn well need an answer to that question. I'm sorry, I don't buy coincidences when the security of my country is concerned, and when I have a feeling that 4, 5, 10 years from now, an American president is going to curse all of them for giving that air base away. Because if that damn country were attacking this country and I was the president, I'd want an air base 400 miles from them. Do you know the advantage that gives you? Do you know how one of the ways in which Reagan won the Cold War, he put intermediate level ballistic missiles in European cities just 700 or 800 miles from Russia, and he put the names of the Russian cities on the missiles. And he said, if you attack Europe, these missiles go off right away to Leningrad, name since changed, Stalingrad, name since changed. And they just pissed in their pants. I hope you can say that. Not only is what I'm telling you true, I can give you 4 books that describe Russians who tell you that. The whole country went into a complete swoon when he did that. He actually put the names of the cities on the missiles because the Russians wondered, would we defend a European city? Carter had promised them the missiles, and like Biden, but not as bad, he was a pussy. And he backed down and took the missiles away. And Ronald Reagan said, I'm going to put those damn missiles back. I'm going to stick it right in their face. And the question was, well, in the Cold War, we have mutually assured destruction. We don't. That's so. He said, Mr. President, how is the Cold War going to end? I mean, this is. Oh, we're very nervous about this. And President Reagan looked right at them and said, "Here's the way the Cold War is going to end. They're going to lose, and we're going to win." That's an American. That's why it's the greatest country on earth. And we're going to win because, in comparison to the Soviet Union, we're the only hope the world has. We're a good country. We're a decent country, despite all of the calumnies and defamation of Biden that we're systemically racist. If anybody has to lead the world, who better than us to set the tone for the world? China kills 60 million of their own people, slaughtering Uyghurs, do a pretty good job of slaughtering Christians, Muslims, the poor Falun Gong people. The best news Xi Jinping can get is that another million of his people died. And he probably has a celebration. Oh, yeah, we lost another 2-3 million that we can't support. So, Senator Blackburn tells us, after a briefing, that these balloons that we were told a week ago by our military were no danger more than the satellites that are there. We were told today that they are quite a bit more dangerous than the satellites. Now, your common sense would lead you to that conclusion because they sit only 60,000 feet above the Earth. Satellites are so far above the Earth, I can't even count it or conceive it. If you've seen satellite pictures, and maybe they're better now, but in the old days, I used to see a lot of them, they're hard to make out. At 60,000 feet with the camera equipment we have today, man, so we can see a lot better with the satellite. We can see a lot better with the balloon cameras than with the satellite cameras. They're much closer. They can take advantage of much better technology, and they can hover. They can stay above even for 3-4 minutes, whereas the satellite is moving at a very, very quick rate of speed. And if you don't catch it right away, you miss it, and then you don't get back there for a while. Whereas the balloon can hover over it. Big explanation in all the newspapers, even the communist inspired newspapers like the Times and the Washington Post, that this is a great advantage. But Senator Blackman came up with another advantage that I didn't know about. They have the capability of intercepting radio and mobile phone communications. They didn't tell us that a week ago. They told us it was no different than the satellites. So what do we call that? They lied to us. They covered it up. They run a government. I think Abraham Lincoln would look at the speech he gave the other night. He would look at the government over the last year under Biden, and he'd look at this decision and he'd say, well, this is very different than what I described. I described, like Governor Sanders, Huckabee Sanders, I described the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. This is a government of the government, for the government, and by the government. And the people they don't count. We tell them any crap we want to tell them. Anyway, they're a bunch of deplorables anyway. I mean, they're not highly sophisticated and intelligent like Joe and Hunter Biden, right? I mean, they're not that level of intellect, which might have a hard time recording 3 digits for an IQ. The second lie, the first lie we've been dealing with a long time now, and that is the pursuit of Trump to try to convict him of something he didn't do, which is outrageous, no matter what you think of Trump. To do that to any American is outrageous. To try to convict him of something you know he didn't do. And they know he didn't do Russian collusion. They all knew it by the time he was elected. The FBI knew it, and the FBI notified everyone, and they went ahead with the phony investigation anyway. Lied to the court, and they've gotten away with it, just like they got away with Hillary. And that's emboldened them to go further and further and further. So this balloon thing can't pass. We have got to figure this out. Exactly how compromised are we? How much room do we have to provide for our defense against China? How much room has Biden left us in his sellout to China? I am now, you're probably not ready for this, and they're not ready for this. I am prepared to say that he definitely sold out to China. Those amounts of money don't happen unless China gets great value. China is not stupid like Biden. The Chinese are extraordinarily sharp and very, very cynical and very tough. And the Chinese are not corn pop. They're really like tough guys. And frankly, with all of his braggadocio, Biden is just like a little simp weakling. So they'll crush him, absolutely crush him. So how are we going to protect ourselves? It looks like China gets everything it wants. It's outrageous. I can't think of one area in which he stood up to China. He hasn't done anything about COVID. He hasn't done anything about the genocide of the Uyghur people. He hasn't done anything about the consistent destruction of Christians and Muslims. Now he hasn't done anything about their going across the United States and photographing at will anything they wanted, picking up telephone conversations. So is it the money they paid him? Or you want another possibility? So I have a hard drive. What's a hard drive? A hard drive is a complete copy of Hunter's computer, which is the main one he used for 7 years. It contains, we could argue about it, it contains anywhere from 30 to 60 felonies, most of them committed by Hunter and Joe. And the main ones, the big ones, and the big money went to Joe. So this isn't about Hunter. Hunter's a player. Joe's the top of the chain. This is exactly what Senator Johnson and Senator Grassley conveyed today in front of Congressman Jordan's committee. And they did it brilliantly, by the way. And those men were threatened, tortured in a literal, in a figurative sense. So I don't know, how we work our way out of this until we get to 2024 and we get rid of this administration that appears to be controlled more in the interests of China than in the interests of the United States. They don't seem to be able to calculate the interests of the United States. I don't know if that comes completely from the money. I don't know how many other people they've bought off. Blinken's father is very active with them. Senator McConnell's wife is a multi-billionaire as a result of Red China. You see the NBA will do anything for Red China because they can make enormous amounts of money there. I've had various casino people in Las Vegas tell me that they could leave Las Vegas in a minute and make 10 times as much in China. And I know that some of them put pressure on Trump to change his position on China. This is a very, very serious issue. And we got a sell out of America going on here for the interests of China. And the Chinese have worked this brilliantly for years. And they're now, the chickens are coming home to roost. Well, Ted, who do we have today?
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. We have a live audience on hand and others joining us, and of course, our online audience across our platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Getter, Rumble, and Twitch.
Any
Mayor, we have a group coming over. I hear them now.
Well, we have Monsignor Alan Placker. You got any questions, Alan? Ashley, you have any questions? Ashley was brilliant last night.
And we have another group of guests showing up.
What does our audience have to say? Anything?
Lots of questions coming in. Mayor, what will come of these hearings? We're seeing some good stuff on TV, but that's what it is. It's on TV. What do you expect to come from this?
Oh, if you watch today, you can see Jordan is not Jordan's a formidable presence. He's not, nobody's rolling over Jim Jordan. If you watched him running that committee today, he had control of it. And the two senators were brilliant. Well, first of all, you have got to be respectful of Senator Grassley. He's been there since Lincoln, and he still functions, quite effectively. And he's always been from the time, gosh, he was there when I first went to Washington, I think. He was going after crooks then, back in 1980. I mean, the guy is he's an Iowa farmer who sometimes expresses himself like in country language, but he's a very smart guy, and he's an extraordinarily top to bottom honest guy. This is not one of those people like Biden who, sold his office for hundreds of millions. The guy doesn't have hundreds of millions. I don't know if he even has millions. And he's led a pretty simple life. And you can tell when you just talk to him or listen to him, you can tell that he has. Well, when you listen to him explain what he explained today, which is nothing short of a Clancy novel about the corruption of the Democrat Party and what they did to him, there's no reason to believe he isn't telling the absolute truth. No reason. And then it's corroborated by Johnson. And they take you right through how they created the Russian hoax, paid for it at $1.1 million. Then when that didn't work, they used a phony Ukrainian story with a whistleblower they never produced. And when that was over, they took the January 6th situation, which had its elements of really being bad, and made it into worse than made it in terms of public relations, because they owned the media, worse than 9/11, worse than the Civil War, worse than Pearl Harbor, worse than the Revolutionary War. I mean, every single thing I'm telling you, a Democrat said. Well, that's got to tell you they're lying. And I know there were 245 Antifa people inside that building, and they've never been identified. I got the text. You can see it, episode 8. Put it out when I first got it. We now know that the FBI was helping to create the riot. I don't know what else the FBI did. My God, they've done everything. It's disgraceful. It's almost impossible to believe what the FBI has done. It's impossible to, it's really just literally impossible to believe it. So let's see if we can get a little bit of this. Shall we connect to our television screen, Ted? Oh, but we don't have our speaker.
We don't have the speaker, but we do have the screen. You can play audio right here on the mic.
Well, I have the.
I can zoom in on there too with our camera.
I do have this. It's 46.
I find the moment.
I'll
zoom in on the camera from here, Mayor. We have our very high-tech InstaLink 360, which can zoom.
Their analysis of the credibility of reporting related to the Biden family in what I've been told is a restricted access sub-file.
Now, Senator Grassley is one of the most senior members of the Senate. I would say Democrat, Republican, respected for his honesty and integrity. extremely direct, the farmer, extremely direct, simple man, but smart, and gets offended by lying. Couldn't be a Democrat. And I think when he started this, I talked to him and Johnson early on, and I think they thought I was crazy with the things I was telling them. They now think I didn't dig up enough. I'm gonna let you.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor
I'm gonna
Live.
let the senator explain it. I mean, you really have to hear the whole thing because he goes into great detail about the whistleblowers and what the FBI has told him. And of course, the media will not cover this. They'll censor this. But this is vital information the American people need to know and evaluate. I mean, is Senator Grassley at this age and stage of his career about a country that he loves going to lie and make this up? I doubt it. But at least people have got to get a chance in a country that's devoted to the First Amendment to hear this. So you're going to get to hear it because we allow you to hear things that nobody else does.
Findings of our previous two reports. They financially linked Hunter Biden and James Biden to entities and individuals connected with the communist Chinese regime. We also acquired business records with Hunter and James Biden's signatures alongside those same Chinese nationals. How were they supposed to be paid? According to bank records, there were wires from companies linked to the communist regime. In 3-4 speeches, we made those bank records public and asked this question to our partisan detractors, the same ones that I mentioned throughout my remarks, and maybe a lot of others. Are these official bank records Russian disinformation? We also shared hundreds of pages of bank records with U.S. Attorney Weiss. He failed to respond. Now, as our investigation continued, whistleblowers approached my office with allegations that the FBI created an assessment in August 2020, the same month that the FBI briefed me and Senator Johnson. According to these whistleblowers, that assessment was used by FBI headquarters to improperly discredit negative Hunter Biden information as, you might expect, disinformation. As a result, this scheme allegedly caused investigative activity to entirely cease. It's been further alleged to me that in September 2020, the same month Senator Johnson and I released our first report, those FBI headquarters personnel began placing their analysis of the credibility of reporting related to the Biden family in what I've been told is a restricted access sub-file. Further allegations to my office involved FBI personnel at the Washington field office who improperly ordered information to be closed by the FBI related to Hunter Biden's potential criminal conduct in October 2020, just before the election, even though it was verified or it was verifiable. Other whistleblower disclosures to my office make clear that the FBI has within its possession very significant, impactful, and voluminous evidence with respect to potential criminal conduct by Hunter and James Biden. These disclosures also allege that Joe Biden was aware of Hunter Biden's business arrangements and may have been involved in some of them. We still aren't sure what's been done with this information. The FBI's track record doesn't create much faith that the information is going to be followed up on. It's clear to me that the Justice Department and the FBI are suffering from a political infection that, if it's not defeated, will cause the American people no longer to trust these storied institutions. It will also threaten the American way of life. Unfortunately, what you've heard from me, this story of government abuse and political treachery is scarier than fiction. It really happened. But, Mr. Chairman, your committee here, so assembled, has an opportunity to help us write the last chapter in this real-life drama. You must relentlessly pursue the facts and the evidence. Senator Johnson and I will do the same and willing to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Grassley. Senator Johnson.
Well, we'll listen to Senator Johnson in a moment, but whoever you are, you have got to take that seriously for a man who's devoted his life to the United States Senate since 1980, which is now 33 years ago. He's been relentlessly pursuing corruption in government. The man is virtually in a state of shock as to what he found about the FBI, Biden. He's trying to be as measured as he can be. And he has the right instinct. I mean, we have in the White House the biggest criminal that ever sat there. That's frightening. That man's frightened. They've also threatened him and done many things that you can't imagine to him. They're a little too old to be scared, I guess, and a little too patriotic to let it stop him. But what he's telling you, you just can't dismiss it with the words of a liar like Schiff or a guy who was taken in by communist spies like Swalwell, or a creepy liar like Pelosi, who made her money through insider trading with her crooked husband. This is a really decent person. This isn't these people who, what did Harry Truman say? If you show me a politician who leaves office with no money, you show me an honest politician. If you show me a politician that leaves money as a multimillionaire, he's a crook. Harry, I hate to tell you, your party's got a lot of crooks. A lot of crooks. See Dodo Bird here? That's Crook in Chief right there. Right there. Look at McCarthy's, the expression on McCarthy's face. McCarthy is, I gotta be saying, how do we do this? The one talking doesn't even know, probably not going to remember what he said tomorrow morning. And the one cheering has been cackling next to me all night. And it really is damn annoying. Oh, you didn't hear him? That's this one here, Willie's friend. So that's the hearing that Jordan has going on. Before I want to show you one. I want to show you. You can sometimes just tell the way people. Look, this is the Democrat who testified. Would you know immediately when I showed you this picture? If I showed you this picture and I didn't tell you what he was saying, okay?
Or it could take.
If I showed you that picture and I said to you, you don't know what is that a Democrat or a Republican? What would you say, Ted? Look at him with the stupid thing on his head. What is he going for?
A Democrat, and usually I'm on board with going after Mr. Raskin. I do believe he has that because he's undergoing treatment. I don't know if it's chemo, but Representative Raskin,
oh well,
he does have, he is.
Well, I'm sorry if he is going through chemo. I shouldn't make fun of him. He's going.
But what does it say? The fact that a lot,
But
a lot of these,
just because you're going through chemo doesn't make you a good person.
Absolutely not. You don't.
I mean, you can
it doesn't excuse. It doesn't excuse anti-American behavior.
People go through chemo who are wonderful people. People go through chemo who are average people. People go through chemo who are miserable liars who try to inveigle presidents into crime.
It doesn't excuse. It does not excuse the damage he's done to this country. And the lies spouted throughout the sham January 6th.
But before that, he had a mask on. What was the mask for?
Oh, that was theater. Remember those? They had the.
No,
they
he had a
didn't just have
mask on.
masks on. They had like these whole things they put over their heads. I'm not
No,
even
this guy-
kidding.
this guy had a mask on.
January 6th.
Well, at the beginning of the hearing, he had a mask on. I thought he was there for a holdup. No, I didn't recognize Raskin. He was there for a holdup. Well, I'm sorry that he's going through chemo, and I apologize for that part. But I don't apologize for saying that he is a discredit to the United States of America for what he's done in trying to frame an innocent man, which he's been doing for 5 years with pretty much the worst kind of lies that you can imagine. You know, when he questioned me, the committee will not release this testimony. I made an utter fool out of him. He said to me, Mr. Giuliani, I mean, you were arguing these cases and the court ruled against you, and you disagreed with the opinion of the chief court in Pennsylvania, even the Supreme Court. And I said, I did? And you consider that like some kind of crime? Or he said, well, of course it is. So, Mr. Raskin, how often have you disagreed with the recent decision of the Supreme Court overthrowing Roe against Wade? I heard you say it was an outrageous decision. It shouldn't be followed. Imagine you should get arrested for that. You know what he did? He said, I have a vote and left. And my people all clapped.
It's incredible.
Because, you know why? And Raskin's a smart guy. Because they're lazy and they get taken in by the fact that we cave for them. So another Republican would have just said, oh. And I went back at him with the contradiction in what he was saying. And they're not used to that. They're not used to that because other Republicans are afraid that the media will attack them. But I mean, this guy has been railing against conservative Supreme Court decisions for 10 years, since the court started to go conservative. So how the hell is that any different than my saying that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania decided the decision with regard to the legality of the 2020 election incorrectly? And they did. They decided on a party line vote, 4-3 Democrats against Republicans. And the Republicans all agreed with my position. So now, you know who's being recycled, Ted? Blast from the past used to be an expression. I've forgotten who.
Thanks for joining us on
Is that a
America's
call?
Mayor Live.
What, is that a call from Donald Trump?
It is.
We'll call him back. Tell them we'll call him back. We can't interrupt our show. We love him, but I mean, he's not the president right now. Unless he saw a balloon. Did he see a balloon?
It's Ted Goodman. I work with the mayor, sir. He's finishing up his live show. We're live on the air right now.
Would the president like to say something? We'll put him on.
Yes, sir. Would you be willing to say that on a live stream over the phone if I put it on speaker?
No, we'll put it right here.
Okay, Mr. President, you are now on speaker. America's Mayor Live. Can you repeat that? Mr. President.
Mr. President, it's Rudy Giuliani.
Hi, Rudy. I'm sitting here with Randy Levine of the Yankees and Chris Ruddy, and it's like a love fest talking about Rudy.
And I'm talking.
I'll say it any way you want.
And I'm talking to 100,000 people plus on my 8 to 9 o'clock live stream. And I have well, this is not even a compliment. I have with me now the best president of the 21st century.
Thank you, Rudy. Well,
And clearly, without any doubt, the best president since Ronald Reagan. And give him another 4 years and he'll be just as good or better.
Well, that's great, Rudy, and we will try, and we'll try and save the country because it's in deep trouble. It's in deep, deep trouble. But,
We're talking about the
hearing.
hearing. Jordan's doing a good job.
Rudy, as we had what 2 years ago, we never had it so good with the borders the best and the economy. Everything was good. Now it's so sad to see what's happened.
It's really terrible. This country is suffering. I don't know, we're going to make it for 2 more years. We have to. But sometimes you wonder, can we take 2 more years of this?
Very hard.
Every day they lie. They
New York
lie.
is being hit very hard, Rudy.
Every day they lie about something. I mean, it's the hearings today. You'd have been proud of. I hope you heard Grassley and Johnson. They did a
Yes, I
great
did.
job of describing how they tried to frame you over and over and over again.
Yep.
The whole thing was to
That never
frame you.
happened. It's weaponization of justice. It's a disgrace. Never happened. Certainly never happened like this before, ever in the history of the country.
And the reason you did it to them is you were breaking up their corruption,
That's right.
and you were
And
breaking up
You
China,
helped, Rudy.
and
helped.
you were
turned out
standing up
be
to
right about
China.
Everything, you know. You turned out to be right. That's what we were just talking about with Randy, that you were right about all this stuff. They put you through hell, but you were the first to know about the laptop. You were the first guy out there, and you were right about everything. They never gave you the credit for it, Rudy. But you get it now.
And tell Randy, does he realize that since I left being mayor, the Yankees have only won one championship?
Oh, that's not good. Randy, he said that since he's left mayor, you've only won one championship. He said that, but that's not bad. Don't forget, most guys have won none for 30.
but Mr. President, you know your friend George wouldn't be happy. He wanted to win every year.
Now George wouldn't be happy,
But Randy's doing a great job.
Who knows? No, they have a good group. The new guys are great, and Randy does a fantastic. You know, George loved Randy.
I know
Right,
that.
Rudy. You know, we were just talking about you, and he feels so strongly about you. It's really nice.
So I really am so happy that you called, and I'm going to call you back a little bit later, and we'll probably be over there for dinner tomorrow night.
Very good. Well, I'll see you, Rudy, and we all love
Best
you.
place for dinner in Palm Beach.
Well, and you're the best mayor in the history of the city, so that's the way. And I say it to everybody, and nobody disagrees with me, Rudy.
And you have with you the president of the greatest franchise in sports, and our only hope on television, Newsmax. It's our only hope. Ruddy, don't make sure. Would you get Ruddy some Secret Service protection or something?
I will, I promise.
Because if we lose him, we're going to be dead. We're going to be dead.
He's done a great job with Newsmax. I'll tell
You're
you.
damn right he has. But you know, he's the only one who reports things.
Now it's a fantastic group of people. So, Rudy, so call me. Just say
I will.
hello to yourself. Say hello to your audience. It's an honor. I didn't know I was breaking into your show, but
No, I think it's great that they love it. They love it. We have a live audience here. Clap for them. Come on, show them we have a live audience here.
Oh, that's nice.
All right.
That's nice. Well,
We'll see you tomorrow.
Rudy, take care.
Okay,
And I'll
bye-bye.
talk to you soon.
And say
Thanks,
goodbye to my
everybody.
friends, my
Thanks
good
very
friends.
much. Bye.
Okay. I was told he wasn't going to be there tonight. I was going to see if we could go over there for dinner because I had something to talk to him about early. And they told me he wasn't going to. He must have just gotten back.
So thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. That was indeed a very
So you
special
should
moment
know
for the
that
show.
the two people with him, we should tell the audience who they are. So Chris Ruddy is the owner of Newsmax. You all know Newsmax, right? It's a television station. Is it a radio station? I don't know. It's a radio station. It's what it really is. The television station struggles because the left-wing providers cut them out. But the website is extraordinarily successful. It has a wide reach, maybe second, third, fourth. I used it extensively to get the word out on the hard drive. It's the reason that by the time of the election, even with the censorship that was going on in 2020, 50% of the American people had still heard about the hard drive. And believe me, that wasn't easy. NBC, CBS, ABC, even Fox, MSNBC, CNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, every other flunky newspaper in the country wouldn't cover it. Just the New York Post, even the Wall Street Journal didn't cover it. Only the New York Post and alternative media. So alternative media, which I don't have the time to define for you now, we'll do it tomorrow night, but alternative media is much more powerful in this country than you think. So in 3 weeks, all we had were me, Steve Bannon, Bob Costello. That's it, getting the word out. And we reached 50% of the American people, even though we were cut off from every news source you would think of, except for the New York Post, which circulation is about 1.5 million. But we ended up reaching about 130 million people. I'll explain to you how we did it. We did it with what we describe, Bannon and I describe as a guerrilla war. We went on local television, local radio. They are not corrupt like the major networks. You can go on the local station in Milwaukee. You can go on the local station in Peoria, my favorite city. You can go on the local, but it's a lot of work. And they're not going to take like one big feed, because the thing they want, they don't get like important people. So they put you on and you can get to say what you want to say. And that's the strategy we used. And then we used Christina Bobb. We used Jenna. We had about 10 people that we used that were putting out the information about the hard drive. We probably were getting about a 50% to 75% agreement rate, because when we went on, we would go on with the hard drive. In other words, we knew people wouldn't accept it. So we would bring text with us. So we would show you the text. We'd show you the text from the hard drive where Hunter says, I give 50% to my father. What do you need much more than that? For 30 years. I mean, as a prosecutor, I don't need much more than that. When Hunter had nothing to sell, and they had a Senate office and a vice president's office to sell, and they were doing business with governments that wanted to buy those offices, and then Joe delivered for them like he's delivering now. So that's Chris Ruddy. The other one, Randy Levine, is the president of the New York Yankees, the storied franchise that has won more world championships than any in history.
Are you a Yankees fan, Mayor?
I'm thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for 90 years now. I think I will become.
Maybe you'll make it to a game or two. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe I'll make it to a game. Maybe I know a little bit about the Yankees. Maybe. Oh, this whole show started with our doing baseball.
The
right?
Playoffs.
Come on, my Yankee fan. Ted, what are you getting like Biden? You don't remember anymore?
I mean, imagine if the Yankees won that series.
How did we start?
The New York Yankees. Was it the Astros or the Cleveland Indians?
Cleveland Indians. Oh my God.
Oh!
We're gonna be thrown.
Oh God!
YouTube. We're off for 2 weeks
all right.
on YouTube.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
2.
I'm gonna ask for confession. I'm an intolerant.
Any good? They don't believe in God.
The Guardians. It's the Cleveland Guardians.
Isn't that the name of a prophylactic?
It's also the name of a
I
baseball
thought you
team
got
in Cleveland.
6 Guardians for the price of 3.
That's
not a baseball team. The Guardians is a prophylactic. They sell it right over here in Green's drugstore. They have a sale right now. We may get them as a sponsor. I don't know. I mean, I never take sponsors unless I know how good they are. So I have no idea if Guardian prophylactics are good, but you can get 6 for the price of 3. They're a baseball team. And by the way, is that the Indians like Native Americans, or the Indians in India they were named for?
Another fair question.
The Indians in India are the ones that Biden is prejudiced against.
Yes.
Remember when he said you couldn't go to stores because everybody spoke Indian?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He was not talking about Native. He was talking about Indians.
Yeah.
The ones that Columbus thought he had discovered, but actually had.
Which is why that name was used for Native Americans, right? He thought he was in India. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, you're the historian here, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, you are talking to obviously the greatest mayor, not in New York City history, in American history, but also one of the great historians of our time.
Well, that exaggerates a bit, but if you're talking about the Yankees, I know a lot about that history. So I think
we're in stoppage time.
Oh my goodness, we have broken into soccer time. So I think it's time for us to fold our tent. I think it was very exciting. We got a call from the president. I'm sorry, the former president of the United States. I still wake up some mornings and think he's the president. I do. And it's not because of the election being stolen or whatever you think about that. I'm not going to make an assertion about that. It's because I now have a new reason, and I don't even have to get to the cheating on the election, if there was cheating, they defrauded the American people by suppressing the hard drive. And they did it on purpose with the 51 intelligence prostitutes. Were the intelligence prostitutes, they were pretty high-level prostitutes. Would you consider them more like procurers, madams, and pimps? Or would you consider them prostitutes? People like Brennan and Clapper?
They're clearly for sale, so.
Yeah, but I mean, you think it was a lot of money, small amount of money, or like a position, or?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
a good
like,
question.
They wrote the letter in 2 days. They never got to see the laptop. They had no reason to say it had earmarks of Russian collusion. They never examined it. They wouldn't have known one way or the other. The darn thing wasn't written in Russian. It was written in English.
They represent the permanent Washington political class. These people could care less about the rest of America.
So do you
They
think
care
it's
about their
unfair
own
if I
interests.
call them prostitutes?
Absolutely not.
And do you think the ones who organized it, I should call them
It's almost an
pimps,
insult to
like
prostitutes.
procurers? Yeah, well, prostitutes wouldn't do that same damage to our country.
That's the
did they?
thing. And prostitution, what they did is literally jeopardizing this whole thing. The
I think
whole
I should sue them.
100%.
I'm thinking about it with several other people.
100%.
We're giving it a lot of thought. I shouldn't talk about the president, what he thinks and what he doesn't think. But
So
without mentioning whether the president is thinking about suing them because they defamed him, remember, and we'll play it for you tomorrow night, Joe Biden on national television during the second debate defamed me. He used my name and he basically said I was a Russian agent. I found that extremely insulting, particularly coming from a Chinese agent. So tonight,
we had look.
we had an exciting night. Never know who's going to call in. We're going to see if we can orchestrate a couple of good call-ins now that we got we can't exceed that one.
We can
Unless we get dead
Mayor,
people.
have we peaked?
Unless we get dead people like, Winston Churchill and Ronald
Wouldn't that be
Reagan.
something?
I could get imitators. Winston Churchill's son lived right above here.
Yes.
Right up there.
Yes.
Right up.
Yes.
Can you show? Up there, right there. He lived right up right there. He lived right up there. His wife is still, you know something?
Whose wife?
Because I consider Winston Churchill above me, I made a terrible mistake, and I may be getting like Biden. He lives down there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Down there, right
He's the
below me.
floor below us.
And Mrs. Churchill is still down there. And she's here about 3 months out of the year. Want to get some good stories? We'll take her out to dinner.
Wow. Mayor, you've been holding out on me. Yeah, that's a dinner we have to have.
We could do
I am spoiled with the dinners I get to attend with the mayor. But you have Winston Churchill's wife.
Everybody wants to do mafia stories. Suppose we do one night of Winston Churchill stories.
One night
that I got from her husband, his cousin. I got some great Winston Churchill stories. Most of them have been told, but people might not remember them.
Absolutely. Oh, we're doing that. So that's all the time I think we have for this evening. We're 9 minutes into stoppage time.
Oh man, that's about right.
That's
Can I
about
still
right.
Kick a goal?
I think we're gonna call tonight, Mayor. So why don't you send our audience off? What a great night, a very special evening.
So there's the hope.
Didn't he seem like he was? What a great mood he seemed to be really in a good mood.
He is in a good mood. I mean, that's why he could get us out of this very quickly. Do you know that spirit is the key? Everybody talks to me about how did I turn New York City around? The crime, the welfare, the budget, the taxes. No, you know what I am the most proud of? And we'll conclude with that. When I came into office, 80% of the people thought the city was moving in the wrong direction and they wanted to move out. When I left, 75 to 80% thought New York City was moving in the right direction, and they were going to stay there for the rest of their lives. I gave them hope. All this guy does is give them despair. And boy, Trump was big on hope, and he produced. Well, God bless America, because it always happens that God brings us the right person at the right time, because God loves America, and America loves God despite the freaking atheists that have gotten